Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of CVtv and Workshop. My name is Carlos and Dave. I'm in here. We're your host for the show. How are you doing, Dave?
Doing good today, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm good to see you too. Now I hear that for the first time the weather's not as good down there.
No, it's a nasty day today. Rain, kind of cool, so not too good.
Well, I'm not going to complain. It is 54 degrees here, so it's actually kind of nice. Not too
Yeah.
nice, but it is still nice.
Nice for you guys, huh?
Yeah, nice for us. Nice for us. For you guys, you'll be freezing here.
It's cold weather.
So, everybody, I want to say hello to everybody. I see Mark Kennery is here. I see New York Bumpkin, NY Bumpkin. Don Edmondson is here. Sean and Chaz is also. Connor is here today. I know Connor. Hope you're feeling better. Brandon is here. Aaron Gray is here. Whoa, Aaron Gray is here. That's a surprise. How you doing there, Aaron?
Thanks for
Um,
being
uh,
here.
Producer Reef, we got a lot of people here. Alex is here. Oh my God, this is actually kind of fun. So, Dave, what are we talking about today? What's the big workshop today?
Yeah, today we're talking about return pumps, and really, this is the heartbeat of your aquarium, as far as I'm concerned. This is what moves the water, your main circulation. Um,
Exactly. That's good. That's good. But okay, so before we go into the return pumps, we do have a couple of shout outs in there. It's a big one right now. I hear that. So it's a big anniversary, right?
Yeah. So one of our longest customers, and that really maybe one of the first ones I had when I started CoralVue over 20 years ago, and it's Premium Aquatics is celebrating 25 years. So we wanted to give them a shout out.
My God, 25 years of going. I remember when Premium Aquatics was starting,
Yeah,
with Jason
yeah,
and oh my God, that goes back. That goes
yeah.
back.
That was your Reef Central days, huh?
Yeah, that was before Reef Central. That was
Okay.
that was before Reef Central.
Wow.
Because I remember, if I remember correctly, Jason used to purchase live rock, and I'm talking about the real live rock that we had back in the days
Yeah.
from Harbor Aquatics, because Harbor
Okay.
Aquatics used to be a big one that would import stuff. Um, uh, but yeah, oh my God, that goes back a long time, and Jason has been around for a long time, and I think I I can bet you cannot find anybody out in the hobby that will say something bad about Jason because he's
Nope.
such a
Yeah,
great
he's a
guy.
great guy. He really is. So
He's a
yeah,
stand-up guy and everything. So you guys,
a
you
little
know,
love out to Premium Aquatics. So they've been
exactly.
doing a good job for a long time. We thank them.
We thank them a lot, and they're great supporters of CoralVue, and they carry the products, which is
Yeah.
amazing. That's always great when the retailers support you, and then not pick any sides. It's always best, Retails are there to sell, not to pick sides,
Yeah.
So
We hope.
that we would hope, but that's
Yeah.
not the case
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Kai is here. Look at
Wow.
that.
We got a German
Germany.
house.
We got the Germans here. I'm going to ask our producer April to please kick him out. You know. Hey Kai, when are you moving to the U.S., man?
Yeah. Yeah. I bet.
All right. So let's go over the if you guys if this is the first time you see the workshops, we actually do this every couple of weeks. So we've actually done like 4 or 5 different workshops on different things. And what we do is we combine, our knowledge. It's over 40 years of knowledge in here between Dave and I on keeping reef tanks. And you know what we say may not be the law. What we say may not be carved in stone, but what we tell you is things that we've had first-hand experience. I'm not reading it in a book. We're not reading in a book. We didn't learn it from online. We didn't read it somebody else. This is stuff that we actually have dealt with on first-hand experience through our tanks. Right,
Yeah.
Dave?
We're actually keeping tanks. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, we actually do keep tanks, and we actually also make mistakes, and
oh
then
yeah.
we grab those mistakes, turn around, and share them here, and hope that you don't make the same mistakes. Obviously, you learn from a mistake, so it's not bad that you make a mistake, but if you can avoid it, it's better.
We are all still learning. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that is for sure. That is for sure. So return pumps, Dave. Let's let's talk about what are return pumps. What is their main functionality?
Main functionality is moving water. We want to move water from one place to the next, and typically in a reef tank installation, it's from a sump, and that is going to require plumbing from that sump where the pump is placed, and enough head pressure to return the water from the sump back up to the overflow into the tank. So
That
that's
is
the main purpose with a circulation pump.
so. If that's the case, Dave, is a return pump supposed to change flows? Is a return pump supposed to slow down at some point, or is it supposed to run, at the same speed all the time, 24/7?
Typically, this installation is a constant speed pump. I know
Okay.
that they have some other people running some type of different modes, but a typical installation is going to be a constant speed and where you
Okay.
set it at.
Okay, because and we say this, guys, because the primary point, the primary function of the return pump is to move water from the sump to the tank and back into the sump for filtration. The return pump is not there to create different flow patterns. The return pump is not there to create waves. It's not for that purpose. You have to remember, you have to separate and look at things and see what their primary purpose is. The primary purpose of the pump is to move water. When are you going to get the best? These pumps are best, and they do the best when they're running at the same speed 24/7.
Yep.
That's what it is, especially, and we'll cover AC pumps and DC pumps. But AC pumps, once you start shutting them off and turning them back on, then you start you start rolling the dice, because
Getting into another set of potential problems doing
exactly
that.
because the pump was designed to work 24/7. It wasn't designed to be stopped, and all like a flow pump, like a gyro, like an octopulse. They're meant to go up and down, start and stop. A return pump is not designed for that. It's designed to last long time and the way to last long time is by running it at the same speed all the time.
Yep.
All right, good. So before we move on, I want to say we are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you like the show, if you've seen the shows before and you're still hesitant about hitting that subscribe button, that bell button or something, if you didn't, you're going to miss this show because it's not live. Yes, you can watch it, record it, but it's just not the same. It's like watching a pre-recording of the World Series. It doesn't work. You have to watch it live. It's more fun. So please hit that bell, hit that subscribe button, and hit that like, and then you'll get that notification right away. Also, don't forget, we also have a Facebook group, and we also have a HYDROS forum group. It's the forum.coralvuehydros.com, where all the latest information on our brand new, well, not that new, but 5-6 months controller and wave engine are there. A great community. We're a small community, but we're good, and we're always helping, and you'll get one-to-one help in there. So please visit us and check us out. All right. So there are different types of returns, and we just touched upon that. There's tell me, Dave, what do we have in terms of return pumps? What do we have? AC, DC?
I think that's the biggest differentiation between the two is the AC and DC. So what basically is the pros and cons, and we kind of came up with a little list of them here you can look at. And with an AC pump, you're pretty much it's a plug and play. Maybe it's a cheaper option. It's simple setup. It's pretty much you're going to plug it in. There's no controller with it. It's ready to go, and it's predefined output. You'll want to look at what type of performance spec it may have in terms of head pressure, that you're able to deliver enough head pressure back to your aquarium. We listed some of the cons here as well. It's just one speed. Sometimes they can typically be noisy, especially if you get into some of the bigger of these, maybe with the big Baldor motors and A.O. Smith type motors on these larger AC pumps. You also, with those, you run into difficulties with a dynamic shaft seal where they start to leak from that point where the shaft spins on a bearing. So then on the flip side of that is a DC pump, which in the last 5 to 8 years or so have really gained a strong foothold in our market, and this runs into a variable speed control, where you're using a controller and you can actually dial in through the controller a set level or predefined speed on that controller. Typically, they're much quieter. It's just a smoother running motor. They can be a lot more energy efficient as well. So, some other, features on a DC pump compared, and we kind of listed those here, to take a look at. But those are your two primary options that you have to choose from right now.
That's great. Now let's talk about different brands of DC pumps, because we here at CoralVue, we are the biggest distribution company for aquarium distribution company in the country. So we have a wide array of different pumps, and they're all damn good quality pumps, right, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, we try to cover a wide range of pumps, price point, performance wise, and so we'll take you from an entry level ice cap pump all the way up to a high end biz pump, and so we try and cover a wide range, and within that is so many different gallon per hour pumps and head flows, and everybody has a different application. So, and everybody has a different budget. So we want to try and really have a wide range. This is just a few of them. There's quite a few other brands we carry, but just give you an idea of what we have here to choose from.
Yeah. Okay. That's that.
We run all of these pumps in the CoralVue tanks and our systems here, so we feel very confident standing behind these pumps, and this is what we use ourselves.
So, before we move on, because I've been looking around here, the readings, and I want to say happy birthday to Sawyer. I think if I read this correctly, Sawyer Breslow, it is your birthday. So happy birthday. I think that's great. I want to say welcome to Greg Carroll, and Mark Kinnery is here. Harkins Aquatics is here as well. And then I know somebody asked me a little off subject, but they were asking about our lights, Dave. So yeah. We are running. My lights are running on Philips Coral Care lights with the Reef Bright XHO add-ons, and then Dave has the Coral Care lights with the.
I have the Giesman Stellars.
Giesman Stellar T5 supplement. So that's what we're running in here.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back to pumps, and I want to touch upon something that was kind of that you said before we move on to this. To the next subject. It is backup, know, and here at CoralVue, we actually have so many different types of pumps and return pumps of wide variety of prices, a wide range of price. So technically you could get a nice pump as your primary pump, and if economically, financially you're not there yet, you could get a backup pump that is of a lower, a little bit cheaper, more economic pump, and run it as a backup,
Yeah.
So, and that's one thing that I want to point out to everybody, and I deal with this all the time, with customer support and things. You have no idea how many times I get people that come, they submit a support ticket and they say, hey, my pump died, my fish are gonna die. Please send me a new pump, or please do this, and while I would love to drive over and install the new pump, the fact of the matter is that you could be in Washington State and I'm in New York, and shipping is still going to be, shipping is going to be a few days. So please, people, we spend, I hate to say it, but it's the truth. We spend $200, $300 on a coral frag that is the size of this pinky nail right here, but we only have one pump that keeps that collection of little frags, super expensive frags, running our tanks. Yeah. So please, I don't want to sound like a broken record on this one, but you'll hear me saying this a lot of times. It's like, please make budget and get yourself a backup pump, because it's not a matter of if the pump fails. I'm sorry. It is a matter of when the pump is going to fail. This is a machine that is running 24/7. So at some point you have to bring it down, take it out, do maintenance, and then put it back in.
Yeah.
You know, and
I
at some
don't care.
point,
I don't care what brand it is. Everything fails.
yes,
Everything fails. And
everything fails.
when you got your animals just relying on the main circulation pump,
Yeah.
it's really critical to think about backup. But one other thing we didn't mention with the DC pumps is the availability for a battery backup.
Yes.
And, that's another big selling point, and something we really could touch on again in the future is just battery
Yeah.
options.
You know, I want to say, Port Wolf had a comment in there that says you offer next day air shipping. And yes, we do. But honestly, Port, the amount of money that you're going to pay for next day shipping could have just easily been used for a second pump, and then you would have had it to begin with, because next day shipping is not cheap. Trust me.
Guaranteed.
And those pumps
Guaranteed.
are not light. I mean, a Varios 8, it's a heavy pump. It's a small pump, yet the yay size, but it's a heavy pump. So by the time you're done with the next day shipping, you could have just, that pretty much paid for probably a third or a half of that pump to begin with. So you have to weigh your weigh your cash flow there. But it's just, again, these are opinions. They're not set in stone. Take what you want, take what you care. But it's just, get a backup pump, especially your pump. The way I have it set is I have a regular backup pump. It's a Varios 6. And I have another Varios 6 that is my manifold pump. It runs my calcium reactor. It runs my scrubber. And yeah, most people would say as a calcium reactor and a scrubber, you don't need a Varios 6. But my way of thinking is I want both pumps to be the same, so that if one fails, I can easily just swap, disconnect, and screw on the next pump, and I don't have to worry about it. Because the last thing you want to do is get a Varios 6 and then have a tiny little pump, and then you have the pump, but you have no way of connecting it because you don't have the fittings. So, yes, get an economic pump, but if you can, get the same pump twice. You use it for something else, but it's always there as a backup.
Yeah.
All right, good. So let's talk about flow. We're going back into the return pumps and why you need a return pump. So let's go talk about flow, Dave.
Yep.
Flow is actually quite important on the return pumps, and not in the matter of speaking of flow into the tank to create waves, but it's the flow in terms of head pressure, right? How does that affect the pump?
In our plumbing applications, it's everybody has something different. Some people could be running a setup from a basement where they're going to really require a lot of head in order for that water flow to make it up from a floor below up the wall over the tank. And that could require a pretty serious head pressure in that application. But even without that, you think about all of the 90s and 45s, these elbows that we put into our systems. Every time you do that, you're restricting that pump. So what spec you may see in terms of gallon per hour may not necessarily be what you're getting back to the tank. So these are things you really got to consider when selecting a return pump.
And head pressure, what is head pressure, Dave? Explain that to me.
Pressure is from a floor level being 0 up a vertical distance. So how much flow can that pump go straight up, a 1-inch pipe? So if you go from the floor, say 16 feet up, that's your head pressure. You have 16 feet of head to travel before it can return back to the aquarium.
So you're technically is before the water exits at the top on the aquarium at the top, it's going to sit in the pipe, and that water is going to weigh down on the pump itself. So then the pump is going to need to run at a critical speed or critical flow in order to where the pressure of the weight of the water coming down is less than the pressure of the pump pushing up, so that the
Correct.
pump can actually move water upwards. Otherwise, if the weight is greater than the pressure, then the water is never going to go out. The pump is going to run, but water's not going to move.
Yeah,
Correct?
so, correct. And a lot of people will say, "Well, I got a 1,200 gallon an hour pump," but if you calculate the head pressure on it, you may only be returning 100 gallons an hour to the aquarium.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's really important to try and calculate, your gallons per hour based on the actual head pressure. And don't forget about all the 90s and 45s. And anytime we're restricting the pump, you're restricting that total gallons per hour.
Yeah. Going back to the backup pump, and this is because I see the comments right here. I know Connor Sloan just went online. I'm guessing he's in Chicago, so I'm guessing he quoted a various pump next day from New Orleans to Chicago. It was $123. That's a hefty sum that you're. I'm sorry. That's $123 that you're paying to the shipping company, and you're not getting anything out of it. Zero.
Yes.
You're literally giving it away. So if it was me, I would grab those $123, add a little more money, get myself a backup pump, and I'd be good.
Yeah.
So, if you really think about it, it doesn't make any sense to ship something next day when you should have had a backup to begin with. Good. So, I think we're covering the head pressure. So always make sure that the pump is running. Make sure that when you start the pump, especially DC pumps, make sure that you measure the head pressure, or at least make sure that the pump is running at a speed that breaks that head pressure and it moves. Otherwise, it doesn't. Okay, yeah. So always keep that in mind. Okay, AC pumps, DC pumps, you got your choice. It doesn't matter what you go with. Both are right. Just make sure that you know what the pros and the cons are for using each of the pumps. That's all. You just have to be informed.
Really touch on maybe efficiency in terms of
yes.
Power consumption, and yeah, one of the most efficient larger pumps out there is the Abyss pumps, and so you're getting a tremendous amount of flow, a tremendous amount of head pressure, and consuming very little power. So in these states where people are paying ridiculous for, I saw somebody post they were paying almost $1,900 was their electric bill last month in California, and I was like, wow. And this is a hobbyist, so wherever you can save, maybe it justifies the cost of a more efficient running pump.
Yes,
so just something to consider.
Right. Another thing I want to mention also is that, and I'm going to ask our producer April to put back the picture of all the pumps. It'll be figure number 4.
Yeah.
If she could put that picture back, and I'm going to say, because what I want to touch upon is head pressure in terms of going from floor to floor, which is head pressure going to floor. Figure number 4. April, there you go. Head pressure going floor to floor. And what I want to say on this one is right here that of all those pumps in there, of all those pumps, the only pump that is capable of moving water from floor to floor, from basement to first floor, from first floor to second floor, is the Abyss. That is it. None of the other pumps are meant to do that. So please make sure that when you purchase a pump, you make sure that what application you're going to use. If you're using a pump from the basement up to the top, you're going to go with an Abyss. If it's just a pump from the sump to the tank, 6 feet, whatever, then you can go with any of the other pumps. I also want to say, let's touch upon external and internal pumps.
Yeah, absolutely. So some applications require a pump that's plumbed externally from a sump or just plumbed in general outside of sitting in any type of water. And there's also in sump where the pump is submersible. Typically, all of these pumps actually that are up here today can be used both internal or external.
Yeah, and so exactly. Just make sure that you're running the pumps, because there's a reason why pumps are rated for outside and in sump, and it's because of the cooling mechanism. Some pumps do not have a way to cool themselves unless they're submerged in the water. So if they're submerged in the water around them pulls the heat out of the pump, therefore keeping the pump cool. But an external pump that is running out of the water, there's nothing pulling the heat out. So the pump has to be designed to transfer that heat into the water that it's moving and pulling it out. So you have to be careful. You have to be careful in that. That's why not every pump is meant to be used as outside or inside. You have to make sure you read it. Otherwise you'll burn the pump, and I can guarantee you, without a doubt, that is not covered by the warranty. You know,
that's another thing. You know, talking about the efficiency when you're, you know, perhaps talking about an AC pump that isn't very efficient, and you're running it in sump. You have this heat transfer that's coming from the pump that's going into your basically your system that has to be accounted for in terms of cooling the overall system. So these are, you know, some things to weigh when making that decision on what you want to go with and budget, and it's a big decision.
And the various pumps, amazingly, are incredibly efficient. I mean, they are, I think it's less than 1% is lost in heat. I mean, it is.
You look at the power factor, the efficiency of those pumps. Derek and the Hanya factory, those guys are doing an amazing job with the pumps they build. They are made in China, but I can tell you, I've been there numerous times. I know what they're using in terms of materials. They're sourcing raw materials from outside of China. The pumps, for us, the failure rate is less than 1%. It's they're really, you know, hands down our number one seller. The pumps just perform, and it's a great value.
Yes, I know Brandon Reeves put in there, in sumps is so simple, but external really keeps the heat out of the water. And that is true to some extent. But again, let's just talk numbers in here. That's an assumption. But if you have a pump that is 98, 97% efficient when it comes to power factor, trust me, there's not that much heat going from the pump into the water, just by that definition right there, the power factor of 97, 98. And that's what you'll get on the various pumps. That is going to be super high. So there's very little heat going. Yes, there's going to be some heat, but it's very little heat going from one place to the other, you know. So let's keep that in mind. I mean, is that the one thing about this hobby in 2021 is that things have gotten so much better, so much efficient. I mean, you know, Dave and I, we've been here for 20 plus years, and we've seen the evolution. And I mean, I can tell you, Dave, you know, we can talk about then and now in terms of equipment and efficiency, you know. So in our next segment, we are going to be talking about how to program, or no, I'm not going to say program, how to easily add, you know, the return pump into your HYDROS. Since we're talking about bringing something into the 21st century, we got the HYDROS controller, which is going to be very easy to use. It is very easy to use, and I'm going to show you how to do it. But before we move on, let's have a word from Abyss. Welcome back, everybody. We're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. If you like the show, if you have seen the show before, but you still haven't subscribed, please hit that bell, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. You know, as Greg Carroll said, leave the stream, give us some thumbs up, and then come back in. It helps us out, you know, so make sure that you do that so you know right away whenever we are streaming. If you're waiting at the store, if you're waiting in line to get the COVID shot, whatever you're doing, you can just put the earbuds on, put the thing, and have a little laugh with us at our expense sometimes, I guess. Also, I also want to say that if you have any questions about HYDROS, please, we have this fantastic group of folks that are so helpful, willing to help, and very patient at forum.coralvuehydros.com. It's our forum. This is where you find the latest and greatest information. It's a great DIY section. And also, the beauty about the forum is that you can search. Yes, you can search on Facebook, but trust me, it's a lot easier to search on the forum than search on Facebook. And most likely, chances are that the question you're willing to ask or looking to ask has already been asked and answered on the forum. So check it out, and give us a say hi, say hello. Both Dave and I are there all the time answering questions and having and just helping out. So now let's talk about the HYDROS controller and how to implement a return pump into it. So let's just jump right in. I have a HYDROS controller that I have semi-configured already with a few things, and let's jump in and do that. So I'm going to ask our producer April to share my screen. All right, so everybody can see my screen here. Perfect. So I have a simple controller here running a protein skimmer. I have a Wi-Fi strip that I have that, and I have 3 sensors. I have a leak rope detector in case something leaks. I have a waste collector, or my collection cup. If it gets full, it's supposed to shut off my skimmer. And I also have a sump low water sensor. And this sensor is at the kind of towards the bottom of my sump, but not really at the bottom. What I've done is I've let my sump on purpose go down in water level until the pump, the return pump, starts to pull in air. And at that point, I put the sensor. So I know that if by some reason the water level, if that sensor ever becomes dry, then my water level inside my sump is incredibly low, and I should shut off my return pump so it doesn't burn out and run dry. So let's go ahead and add a return pump. I'm just going to go ahead and hit refresh button here so you can see. I'm going to go into outputs. I'm going to add a new output, and we're going to go and type and call it return. If I could just spell, right? And then create. HYDROS makes it so easy because instead of having to type in lines of code and then not only trying to remember syntax, how you write the line, and then the order in which the line is placed, because if you put the lines in different order, it's going to give you different results. We have this fantastic, what you see is what you get, this little WYSIWYG form that walks you through the process. It ensures that you enter all the information you need, and its code in the back end is programmed correctly, so the pump does exactly what you want it to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to go type of output. I'm going to call it's going to be a return pump. So let's go in here, and here we have a dandy return pump with a nice little image in there. Leak input. You know what? I want my return pump to shut off if my leak detector is triggered. So if I have a leak in the sump or something is leaking, let's shut off the return pump and let me know right away, of course. Output device, you know what? We're going to put it on my quad 1, which is the outlet number 1 of my Wi-Fi strip. And you know what? On active modes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to run it during feeding, normal, which is my regular 24/7 mode, but I don't want my return pump to run during water changes, so I'm going to uncheck that. I don't have any depends on. I think the return pump is kind of like the base of everything. It's at the root of everything, so everything depends on the return pump and nothing like that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and upload my changes. So while we wait for the changes to upload, we talk about the return pump and how easy it is. So I just went ahead and added the return pump. So I'm going to go back to my status screen, and it's all set. That is how simple it is to add a return pump to the HYDROS device. Now you have a return pump that is actually running, which is kind of cool. It's on. All right. That's how easy it is. So, I know people have been talking about, outlet number 1, if set on, fall back, return, and if power and all. It's just, what, I get a headache on that stuff right now. I want something simple that I can just quickly do. I want to spend my time enjoying the tank and not trying to figure out how to program something or searching online how to program it. So I wanted to make it as easy as possible, but we can even make it a lot more complicated if you want to. So what I wanted to do now is my return pump. if I have a skimmer that is on the same sump, and if my return pump dies or my return pump stops, then the water level inside my skimmers, inside my sump, is going to go up because of displacement. The water level in the piping, we're talking about the plumbing of head pressure. So that water is going to stop on its track, and then it's going to back down into the sump. Therefore, it's going to make the water level in the sump go up. If the water level in the sump goes up, my skimmer is going to start overflowing, because if I run my skimmer too high, then it's going to overflow and create a mess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my skimmer, which is running right now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in here and say depends on. And on depends on, I'm going to choose return pump and click save. So what that is going to do is that if the skimmer depends on the return pump, and if the return pump is off, then turn my skimmer off. Look how simple that is. So now whenever the return pump turns off, and I'm going to do that right now, I'm going to turn off the return pump. As soon as I turn the return pump off, look what happened. The skimmer shut off. How easy was that? No if output, X, Y, and Z and do all the stuff. Nothing like that. Let's keep it simple. So I'm going to turn the return pack to on, and now my skimmer is orange. It says off waiting. And the reason why it says off waiting is because it's going to take a few seconds for the water in the sump to go down to normal level before everything goes back to normal. I want to make sure that the skimmer doesn't turn on. If the skimmer turns on at the same time as the return pump, the water level in the sump is still high and my skimmer will overflow. But if I give the skimmer about 30 seconds, then what will happen is that the return pump will turn on, and 30 seconds later, just like it did right now, the skimmer will turn on after the water level in the sump has gone down to normal. So those are the little things that you can do with the HYDROS. In that 30 seconds, it's easily programmed at the bottom right here. So it says minimum off time, 30 seconds. And it makes sense. It's intuitive. Minimum off time. Anybody knows what that means. That means that, if I turn it off, it will remain off for at least 30 seconds before it turns back on. That's pretty much what it means. No hard coding, no non-intuitive, syntax, or what they call it, writing in there. It's just simple to use. It makes sense. All right. So now, Dave, we wanted, because we here at CoralVue like to make things, a little more complicated than they should. So, if you're a newbie, you can stop watching now. But, if you're an advanced user, stick around. No, I'm just kidding. It's always good to know. So what I want to do now is I have a sensor in my tank that is low in my sump. And I want to make sure, like we talked about, that whenever that sensor becomes dry, that means the water level in the sump is so low that you're getting to the point where the pump is going to start to pull in air, and it might start running dry. And at that point, it's going to damage the pump. And these pumps are not cheap. Hey, it's your hard-earned money. You don't want to destroy the pump. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that return pump shut off if that sensor becomes dry. So I'm going to go back to my handy dandy app right here, and I'm going to go to return pumps, and I'm going to go to the gear icon. And okay, so here, leak input. But so if I do that, I can't do it right here. Okay, there's no way to do it because it only accepts leak detectors. Well, HYDROS is easy. This return pump is a standard return pump, is what most people would use. But we at HYDROS allow the advanced users to be able to input their things using the same WYSIWYG. So we're not limiting this. HYDROS is not just for beginners. HYDROS is also for advanced users. So I'm going to go here, and instead of return pump, I'm just going to call it a generic. All right. And I have an input right here, input count. Now I want my return pump to shut off if my leak detector is wet, or I also wanted my return pump to shut off if my low level sump is dry. So I have two inputs. Input one, let's call it leak rope. Activate the output, turn on the pump when the leak detector is dry. Second input, I'm going to say sump low. And activate, I want the pump to turn on when the sensor is not dry. In this case, I want it to be wet. Okay? So I want it to be on when the leak rope detector is dry, or not and, or when the sump level is wet. So I want the pump to turn off if either one of these two sensors are the opposite. So if the leak detector is wet or the sump level is dry, turn off the pump. Okay, so I'm going to change this to or. All right,
There's
I'll
no
put the right
code there. There's no
and
code.
right there. So now
If
I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and upload the changes, and that is it. There's no code needed.
yeah,
There's absolutely no code needed in here, and it makes sense. It's intuitive. So now we have a return pump that will run when the leak detector is dry. And no, it's I'm sorry. They both. I'm sorry. They both have to be on. No, this is good. No. This is why we do. This is why you do things live. When you do things live, it has to be. It's on when the leak detector is dry and the sump is low. If any of these things are not true, then you kind of then you have to shut it off. That's what makes sense right here. Sorry about that, guys. That's why sometimes you have to talk it out loud. So if both are dry and if the leak detector is dry and the sump is low is wet, if both are true, then run the pump. If one of them is not true, if the leak detector is wet or the sump is dry, then don't run them. So both have to be true in order for the pump to run. So if I go back in here into my sump, there you go. Everything is running. The pump is running. The pump is running because the sump is wet and the leak detector is dry. Now, if I were to let's say I'm going to grab my little sump sensor that I have right here, this low sump sensor, and I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to fake that the water level is very low. So I'm going to pull that sensor and I'm going to bring it right out, right here. So all of a sudden, hopefully, sensor, it hasn't picked it up, and I hope it does. Look at that. There you go. Let's see. And that's probably because I have it on the wrong location. Let's see what we have here. I have it on 3. Where do I have it? On 3. Yes, it's on 3. It's on 3. Let me see. And this is where you have live things. Port 3. where you have live. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Live shows. Go figure. All right. So, yep, it doesn't work right now for some reason. Well, that's the beauty of being live. Remember how I said you'll be laughing at our expense? That's why you'll be laughing at our expense. The beauty of going live, the live and events. But anyway, there you go.
there
It
they
just
are.
took a few seconds. It took a few seconds for it to read, but there you go. So now it says dry. Therefore, the return pump is off and the protein skimmer is off. Makes sense, So I can move that sensor back down to the water, and I'm sure it's going to take a few seconds for that to start reading correctly. So I'm going to do that right here. And actually it didn't. It was a little bit quicker this time around. So as you can see, the sensor now, it says wet, and the leak rope detector is dry. Therefore, the pump should be running. Now the pump turned on, but because the pump was off, then the protein skimmer is off. And now the protein skimmer is going to wait 30 seconds wait 30 seconds before it turns on after the return pump turned on. So, it was a little bit of a live glitch in there.
Have a little water still on that sensor.
That's probably what happened. The water on the sensor, it happened in there. That happens sometimes. But at least it did trigger, and then it shut off the pump. I can do the same thing with the leak detector. If I pour some water on my leak detector, the pump will automatically turn off. That is how simple it is to program a return pump on the HYDROS device. There's no coding, there are no lines. You have complicated anodes where you have multiple inputs, and you don't have to worry about the order of the lines to make sure that everything works. Because I know that there's some controllers out there that, depending on how you put the lines, things don't work correctly, and it might turn on instead of turn off. And you never know. Okay. So if you have this, if you like the show, again, if you enjoy what we're saying right here, if you're having a little fun at our expense, please don't hesitate to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the little bell, and join us every couple of weeks. We're here streaming live workshops on Facebook and YouTube. And also, if you have any more questions about the HYDROS control and what we just did right now with programming the return pump, you can always go to our HYDROS forum at forum.coralvuehydros.com. We also have an Instagram account, so please feel free to hit us up on Instagram. I'm at Carlos CVtv. We also have CoralVue. We also have HYDROS. So please hit us on, and tag us. We'll follow you. It's kind of fun. It's always good. So
if you have any ideas on shows you'd like to see us do, we got quite a few in the pipeline. Carlos, we kind of touched on it last week. We have a new HYDROS item coming out, and that's a dual TDS sensor. So we'll be, talking on that here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll kind of get into RODI automation.
Absolutely.
That now.
Yeah, I actually have we actually have a TDS meter running in here.
Yep.
And I can just, you know what? I'll ask hold on for a second here. I'll ask our producer to run, but not yet. Give me a second right here. And I'm happy to show you what we have. It's actually kind of cool the way it works, because it shows it's a dual TDS meter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go in here and just go into my control right here. Perfect. All right, let's do this. And I can show you my, you know what? I have to change my water, my thing. So April, if you don't mind sharing my screen right now, and everybody can see that. And take a look at this right now here. Right there. My RODI unit is running right now, and yes, I have to change my DI. I have to change my DI, but right now my water is producing at 31 ppm, and the second input, the second sensor, I have it on my water input, and
it's already doing its job, huh? It's giving you
it's
time to. Yeah.
Exactly. My water, my I live in Chicago, and I'm incredibly lucky. We actually have really, really good water here. We have very good pressure, and our water is relatively clean. So that's what I have. And the output is at 30. So I have to make sure that, I'm going to have to change my DI and probably change my pre-filters. But the reason it's red is because I get a notification telling me that, hey, your TDS is high. Do something about it. Obviously, it's not going to tell you to go and change the thing. That's where the human element comes into play, where you have to make that assumption. Where thank you, April. You can, thank you. You have to make that assumption of what's wrong with it and figure it out. But it's telling you that. So we actually
2 readings on there.
You get 2 readings.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you get really pinpoint where or what filter may need replacing before another one.
Exactly.
So.
You base the notifications on the primary sensor, which is the one that you would put on the output of the RODI unit, and the second sensor is just for monitoring. You don't set any notifications on that one because you really don't need that. So you just put it on the output. And Brandon, yes, they come with Quick Connect. They actually, if you change that input on your RODI unit from an elbow to a T, you put the water on one end, and then you put the TDS meter on the other end of the T, and then you got yourself a reading. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that was just a little preview of what of one thing that are coming out that is going to make RODI water completely smart, really smart now, because you can run your control. You can run a RODI water with a control tube, put a couple of solenoids there, put a solenoid for the RODI water, put a solenoid for the water input, and then put the sensors.
Yeah.
Put a TDS sensor in there, and you know what the great thing about it, Dave, is that both sensors go into one sense port.
Yeah.
You're not occupying 2, so you can still use a control 2. Put the dual TDS sensor into port number 1 of the sense port, and then put your leak detector on the other sensor. Especially if you live in an apartment. How many times? Oh my God, Dave, what is it about? I'm going to say about 15 years ago, I had a big tub, 2nd floor, and I forgot to turn it off.
No.
not good. I had a landlord calling me. It's like, hey, the people downstairs saying that it's raining, and it's like, oh, crap. Let's just say I did not get my deposit back on that one. I was lucky. I only got, I didn't get the deposit, and they didn't get charged for anything else. So yeah, so a leak detector would have come in handy 15 years ago, but it didn't.
Right.
There was a controller. There's a controller back there, but they didn't have a leak detector that way. Not as good as the HYDROS.
Yep. We got it now.
All right. So I want to say thank you for Brandon Reeve. Greg Carroll's always there. Aaron's Aquaculture, Ravencaw, CoralVue, Wendy, thank you for being here. Don, thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Dave, what else do we have? Anything else we need to cover?
Yeah, I think we're pretty good for this week. So we'll reach out to us, anything you'd like to see, or we are pretty accessible and try and help everybody.
Exactly. If you have any questions, again, please go to our forum.coralvuehydros.com. We are streaming. We always stream live on Facebook and YouTube. And if you like the show, please, we do this every couple of weeks, and we have a conversation. We show you how to do something. We split the show into two parts. The first part is show you what the product is about, what the device is for, what's the how to get the best of it. And the second part of the show, we show you how to integrate into the HYDROS controller. So we keep it simple. So if you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell. And, thank you again for watching. Thank you again for everybody for coming over and joining us. It's always great to see the regular ones. On behalf of Dave and I, hosts of CoralVue workshops, I want to say also thank you to April, our producer, and Jeremy, for our graphic director, for making all those great graphs. Until then, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.